He didn't even read the contract. Just signed my name, like it was still his to give. That was the thing about my brother. Garrett never asked. He just acted like the world owed him obedience, and the rest of us were lucky to orbit in his gravitational pull. When I got the email labeled urgent, sign now, I should have paused. I should have read the fine print. Hell, I should have known better than to trust anything handed to me by a man who once used my Netflix login to break up with a girl. By streaming a slideshow titled, "It's Not You, It's Still You." But I didn't pause. Because I was tired. Because I was busy. Because Garrett said it was just a temporary guarantee for a private investor, and I'd spent my whole life being the responsible brother. So I signed. Click, sign, done. It wasn't until later, much later, that I realized what I'd agreed to. That night I was alone in my apartment. Technically mine, but let's be honest, it looked like a placeholder. Beige walls, a fake ficus in the corner, and a couch that squeaked every time I sat down like it was protesting my life choices. I had just microwaved some leftover curry and was debating if Love is Blind would ruin the last 2 functioning brain cells I had left when someone knocked on the door. Not buzzed, not rang, knocked, 3 sharp raps. Calm, precise, like punctuation. I glanced at the clock, 11:42 p.m. No one knocked like that at 11:42 p.m. I stood, hesitated, then opened the door. The man on the other side looked like he'd stepped out of a GQ photo shoot and a funeral at the same time. Tailored black suit, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing skin so pale it bordered on translucent, jet black hair slicked back, not a strand out of place. And eyes, God, those eyes, not glowing, not demonic red. Worse, they were gray, like ash right after a fire goes out. Still smoldering, still dangerous. "Jace Taylor?" he asked, voice smooth, cultured, bored. "Yes?" I blinked. He held out a card. Black. Matte. No logo. Just 3 embossed silver words. Collateral. Claimed. Collected. "What the hell is this?" I asked. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're the guarantee. I'm, what? For the debt." He tilted his head. He didn't even read the contract. Just signed your name, like it was still his to give. I froze. Garrett? A soft hum, as if I'd said the name of a disappointing student. "Okay," I laughed. "This is a prank. Good one. Where's the camera?" He stepped inside without asking. That's when it got weird. The moment he passed the threshold, the air in my apartment shifted, like static. The light from the ceiling flickered, just once, and the shadows clung to him, a fraction too long. "I assure you this is no prank," he said. I backed up. "Look, I don't know what Garrett told you. You'll find your belongings have already been transferred." He touched the air, and with a flick of his fingers, the walls of my apartment changed, literally. One moment I was standing in my sad little living room, the next, I was somewhere else. Glass walls, dark marble floors, clean lines, no dust, no clutter, just the low hum of something I couldn't see and didn't want to name. I stumbled back. "What the?" "Your contract guarantees temporary possession until the debt is repaid." He sounded like a lawyer explaining parking fines. "I didn't sign anything like that." "No," he agreed, "but your name is on it. And in my world that's what matters." I turned toward the door, only to realize there wasn't one, just more wall, smooth, seamless glass, trapped. Panic surged, but before I could open my mouth he stepped forward, close, but not threatening. "Not yet." He raised a hand, brushed a finger against my jaw, cold. "Not dead, just ancient." "You're not the one I came for," he murmured, "but you're the one I'm staying for." I stared at him, and then, finally, I said the only thing that felt honest. "Who the hell are you?" He straightened his tie. "My name is Mirey." He turned his back to me and walked toward the window that showed a skyline I didn't recognize. "And for now, Jace Taylor, you're mine." I woke up on velvet. That was the first thing I registered. Not a mattress, not a couch, but a velvet-lined chaise lounge that looked like it had been imported directly from some dusty aristocrat study in 1783. The second thing I noticed was the silence. Not city silence, real silence. No pipes creaking, no distant sirens, not even the soft whir of a fridge. Just stillness. Like the air itself had stopped breathing. I sat up slowly. The room was massive. Glass walls on two sides showed a sweeping skyline I couldn't place. It wasn't New York, or if it was a version of it that didn't exist on Google Maps. The floor beneath my bare feet was black marble, veined with silver like frost on obsidian. There were only a few pieces of furniture: the lounge, a sleek, dark dining table, and a single massive painting on the wall, an oil portrait of a man with no face. Just a shadow where features should have been, and underneath it, on a narrow pedestal, rested a dagger, curved, black as midnight. No clocks, no doors. And yet, I wasn't panicking. Not yet. Awake. I turned. Mirey stood near the window, holding 2 cups of what smelled like coffee. Rich, dark, expensive. He looked the same. Tailored, unnervingly composed. Like he'd just stepped out of an interdimensional boardroom. Except now he'd taken off the tie, and the top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone. It made him look less human somehow. Too precise. Like a statue come to life. I don't usually sleep on antique furniture, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. But I guess there's a first time for everything. He offered me a cup. I took it, sipped. Definitely not Starbucks. This place is... I looked around. Minimalist torture chic? He ignored the jab. You're here as temporary collateral, he said, voice flat. You are not a prisoner, nor a slave, simply an asset. I raised an eyebrow. Do I get a vest? Something with property of the void stitched on the back? Humor. Mirey tilted his head. A common human reflex in the face of powerlessness. I rolled my eyes. Says the guy monologuing like he's auditioning for a villain role. I am not a villain. That stopped me. He didn't say it defensively, just stated it, like gravity. Right, I said. You just collect people when they sign contracts they didn't read. Your name was there. That's all that matters in my domain. He walked past me, placing his own untouched coffee on the table. Intent is irrelevant. Signatures bind. I followed him with my eyes. And what happens now? You keep me in this glass box and... what? Watch me slowly go insane? Mirey turned to me, arms folded. I've found that fear and pain are inefficient motivators. They cloud thought, dilute usefulness. Psychological tension, however, he paused as if considering how much to say, can be very clarifying. I stared. So I'm a lab rat in your demon experiment? He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured to the dining table. Sit, eat. 2 plates were already set. Steak, perfectly medium rare. Roasted vegetables arranged with near mathematical precision. A glass of wine so dark it looked like blood under the overhead light. This is a lot of effort for a collateral asset, I muttered, sliding into the chair. I enjoy patterns, Mirey said. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. They give shape to eternity. I chewed in silence for a moment, then pointed at the dagger on the pedestal. That yours? Yes. Use it much? Only on Thursdays. I blinked. Was that? He looked at me with the faintest twitch of his mouth. A joke. Hell just got chilly. We ate in silence after that. He didn't eat much. Mostly drank from his glass and watched me like I was a particularly puzzling chess move. When I finished, I pushed the plate away. So, what now? I asked. You sit and study me until I break? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood. Walked slowly toward the painting with the faceless man. When he spoke, it was almost thoughtful. You're quieter than I expected. Not angry, not afraid, not begging. He looked back at me. You're boring. I gave him a deadpan stare. Gee, thanks. But, he added, stepping closer again, You're boring in a way I can't quite predict. That's intriguing. He turned and disappeared down a hallway that hadn't been there a second ago, leaving me alone in a room that wasn't supposed to exist, sipping expensive wine next to a dagger on display. And all I could think was, I've had weirder dates, but not by much. If Mirey thought I was going to cower in a corner and cry, he'd seriously misjudged how emotionally numb a 30-year-old corporate burnout could be. I'd seen my boss scream at interns for putting too much oat milk in his latte. I'd sat through finance meetings that felt longer than geological eras. I once went on 3 dates with a guy who didn't blink, ever. My threshold for weird was high. So, the next morning, I did what any emotionally exhausted human would do in an extra-dimensional luxury prison. I made coffee. I had to dig around his kitchen for the machine, some terrifying chrome thing that probably cost more than my car, but it worked. The aroma grounded me more than I expected. Then I turned on some music, jazz, Miles Davis. Let the trumpet fill the empty marble space like it belonged there. And then, for good measure, I rolled out a yoga mat I found in a hall closet and started stretching. Morning rituals, I muttered, keeps the existential dread from congealing. I was mid-sun salutation when Mirey appeared in the doorway, a single dark brow raised. Is this normal human behavior? I mean, it's either this or scream into a pillow for 20 minutes, I said, not looking up. Want to join? I don't bend pity. He watched me for a while, silent still. His presence always felt like a shift in air pressure. Not heavy, not oppressive, just undeniable. When I stood and wiped my hands, I walked past him to the table, where I'd laid out 2 cups of coffee and a tiny folded newspaper page I'd summoned via phone and printer. He blinked at it. Is that a horoscope? I said cheerfully. Thought we could start your morning with a little celestial insight. You know, in case demons have rising signs. He stared. I cleared my throat dramatically. Let's see, Capricorn. Today you may feel strangely attached to a new person in your life. Consider if this bond is emotional, contractual, or otherworldly in nature. Sound familiar? His lips twitched, barely. I continued, Scorpio. Power plays could backfire today. Remember, not everyone wants to be dominated. Very relevant. I'm not a Scorpio. Oh? Then what are you? He gave me a long, unreadable look. I've existed longer than the star signs, Jace. Wow. And still single? This time the corner of his mouth actually lifted. Not a smile, not yet. But close. Before he could retort, there was a sudden shift in energy. Not magical, just social. The kind that happens when someone unwanted enters a room. A knock echoed. Not the eerie, calculated one from the first night. This one was sharper, impatient. Mirey sighed, and without moving, waved a hand. The air shimmered, and suddenly, part of the wall faded into a sleek mirrored doorway. Stay here, he said. What happens if I don't? He looked at me. I stayed. I ducked behind one of the wide column dividers, not entirely hidden, but enough. The door opened, and a man stepped in with the confident gait of someone who thought he owned the place. Eric Strain, immaculate navy suit, designer watch, sharp jawline and sharper eyes. The same man who'd been eyeing me in board meetings like I was a stock with untapped potential. Quite the upgrade, Eric said, voice smooth. Didn't expect your taste to lean toward hostages. Mirey didn't react. Eric walked further in, gaze sweeping the room like he was checking for threats. Or witnesses. Is he here? He asked. Mirey sipped his coffee. Eric's tone cooled. You're wasting time on a liability. Jace isn't even a major shareholder, just a family convenience. You could have had something more profitable. I'm not in this for profit, Mirey replied. Then what? Entertainment? You know I've had my eye on him. I do. A pause. Eric stepped closer. If this is some kind of challenge. He's not for sale, Eric. The words cut through the air. Calm, flat, final. I checked, Mirey added. Thoroughly. Eric's jaw tightened. You always did like puzzles. And you always assumed you had the solution. There was a silence, tense and electric. Then Mirey said, "This meeting is over." Eric lingered a beat too long, then turned, brushing a hand down his suit jacket like wiping off the dust of rejection. The moment the door closed and shimmered back into seamless wall, I stepped out. "Well," I said, "that was fun." Mirey gave me a sideways glance. "You listened. You invited me to live in a glass box. Eavesdropping is implied." He didn't argue. Instead, he crossed the room, poured himself another cup of coffee, and, without looking at me, said quietly, "He wants to own you." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "And you don't?" He looked at me then, eyes cold and ancient, but flickering with something I couldn't name. "No," he said. "I already tried. Doesn't work on you." "You want me to what?" I asked, blinking. Mirey didn't look up from the mirror as he adjusted his cufflinks. His suit tonight was charcoal gray, more subtle than usual, but still tailored within an inch of its infernal life. "Attend a corporate gathering," he said. "Smile when necessary. Don't bite anyone." I thought I was an asset, not arm candy. He turned slightly, the barest ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips. "Tonight, you're not special," he replied evenly. "You're simply presentable." The venue was a rooftop ballroom at the top of the Viral Hotel, all glass walls, expensive lighting, and the sound of champagne flutes clinking with delicate disdain. The kind of place where people said words like synergy and crypto diversification without flinching. Mirey moved through the crowd like he belonged there, because of course he did. He greeted people with nods, tight-lipped smiles, never quite warm but never overtly rude either, just enough to keep people intrigued. And then there was me, standing beside him in a suit that probably cost more than my rent, feeling like a department store mannequin that had wandered into a hedge fund mixer. People noticed me, whispered. One man openly stared. A woman at the bar looked me up and down like I was a handbag she wasn't sure she could afford. I caught pieces of conversation. "Is that his new one? A bit older than usual, no? Still pretty." Mirey didn't say anything, but he was watching. I stood straighter, kept my expression neutral, sipped the very expensive wine, and pretended I wasn't counting how many people clearly thought I was a plaything someone bought at a charity auction. It wasn't the first time I'd been underestimated. Just the first time I'd done it in Gucci. A short older man approached us, clearly someone important, judging by the way everyone parted like the Red Sea. "Mr. Mirey," the man said, shaking his hand. "Chairman Velas," Mirey replied, nodding. "And you're—" The man glanced at me, curiosity sharpened by suspicion. "Companion?" "This is Jace Taylor," Mirey said smoothly. "A consultant." I raised an eyebrow at him but kept my mouth shut. The man's expression didn't soften. Hands-on, are you?" "Very," Mirey said without missing a beat. I almost choked on my drink. As the night dragged on, I noticed something strange. Mirey wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to show me off. He didn't touch me, didn't lean close to whisper dramatic instructions. He just let me exist beside him, let people think whatever they wanted. And maybe that was the strangest part of all. The car ride home was silent at first. Mirey drove, sleek black vehicle, leather interior, music off, windows tinted. The kind of silence that felt too big for one person, and too loaded for two. I finally broke it. "Well, that was fun. Do we get scorecards?" "I think I made 3 people regret their life choices." "You didn't embarrass me," he said. "Wow, was that a compliment?" He kept his eyes on the road. "You handled them well. They thought I was your escort." "They were wrong, I know." Another pause. Then, unexpectedly, Mirey said, "You're too alive." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He glanced at me briefly, then back at the road. "It's irritating. You glow, not literally. But there's something loud about the way you exist. It disrupts the silence." I let that sit for a moment. Then I said, "And you're too dead." That made him turn. I met his gaze. You move like you've forgotten what it means to be real, I said. You observe. You calculate. But I don't think you feel anything you don't analyze first. He didn't answer. But his grip on the wheel tightened. It's like watching a shadow pretend to be a person, I added quietly. For the first time since I'd met him, Mirey didn't look unreadable, ancient, and just for a second, sad. The light turned green. He looked away. Neither of us spoke the rest of the way back. But something had shifted. Not melted, not broken, just cracked. Garrett found me in a bookstore. Of course he did. He always knew where I'd go when I wanted to breathe. Somewhere quiet, full of paper, and people too absorbed in their own stories to bother with mine. I'd ask Mirey for a few hours alone. No guards, no rules, just space. Surprisingly, he agreed. Now I understood why. Garrett slid into the seat across from me in the back cafe of the shop, uninvited as always. He looked good. Designer coat, charming smirk, eyes just a little too alert. Like a wolf dressed in brotherhood. Well, still alive. That's new, he said. I didn't close the book I was reading, still using my name to pay your debts. That's not... Garrett leaned in. Don't be like that. I came to help, I snorted. You always do. Right before it all burns down, he chuckled, unbothered. I have a proposition. Of course you do. He lowered his voice. Mirey isn't what he seems, Jace. You think he's playing some cold, elegant game? He's a predator. He's feeding off you. Emotionally, psychically. Whatever these demons do... Thanks, I said. I'll make sure to wear garlic next time we eat dinner. I'm serious. His eyes sharpened. You can still get out of this, but I need your help to bring him down. We prove breach of contract, public exposure, some legal pressure, maybe even leverage the council. I stared at him. The audacity, the smoothness. He was still trying to use me, just dressed it up in concern this time. Let me guess, I said. You swoop in, I testify, you take credit, and walk away the hero. He raised his palms. It's mutual benefit. I clean up the mess, you go free. Win-win. I shut the book. Garrett, I'm not your pawn anymore. You don't get to move me 2 spaces forward and sacrifice me for strategy. His jaw tensed, just briefly. You don't know what he is. I know what you are. We sat in silence. I drank the rest of my coffee, stood up, and walked out without another word. And somehow, that was the most powerful thing I'd ever done around him. When I got back to the penthouse, the air was wrong, still quiet, still spotless, but colder. Mirey was sitting near the window, not moving, not pretending to do anything else, just waiting. I dropped my keys on the table. You're home early. His eyes didn't meet mine. I know you spoke to him. I didn't flinch. He found me. You didn't tell me. No, I didn't. A beat passed. He asked you to help betray me. More like sell me on some noble fantasy where I'm the hero of your downfall. I sighed. I said no. Mirey didn't respond. Just looked out the window like the skyline could explain something I hadn't. And that hurt more than it should have. You think I'm lying, I said. I think, he said slowly, that you're human. And I've known your kind long enough to know what that usually means. That was it. I stepped forward. Say it then. You think I'm weak? Manipulable? Just another pretty shell with a signature someone else used? Still silence. You want me to prove something to you? I asked. You want me to jump through loyalty hoops like I owe you? Now he looked at me. And it was worse than anger. It was cold disappointment. So I said the only thing left. I'm not your property, Mirey. I never was. But if you're going to treat me like something that can be stolen, returned, or held, then go ahead. I spread my arms. Give me back to him. The silence that followed felt like ice cracking underfoot. He didn't speak, didn't move. So I walked past him, into the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. That night the silence didn't feel still, it felt sharp. He didn't come to find me. And I didn't go to explain. But I didn't leave either. Because the worst part was, I didn't want to, not because of the contract, not because I owed him, but because somewhere between sarcasm and silence, something in me had begun to care. And it terrified me more than Garrett ever had. We didn't speak for 2 days. Not in the petty way people punish each other with silence, but in that heavy, exhausted way where neither side knows what words would even make a dent. Mirey went about his routines like always, precise, quiet, controlled. He drank his coffee black, read the same 3 pages of some ancient leather-bound book, and disappeared into rooms that didn't always exist. And me, I hovered, like an echo. I told myself I was staying until I decided what came next, that I was free, that I could walk out whenever I wanted, but I didn't, because somewhere in the back of my mind, I wasn't sure I wanted to. The silence finally broke on the 3rd night. It was late, the sky outside had slipped into its bruised purple phase, and the penthouse was dim, lit only by the low flicker of wall sconces that gave everything a golden edge. I found him standing by the window again, same stance, same stare. But his reflection in the glass looked tired, not physically, just worn. "I'm not going back to him," I said softly. Mirey didn't turn. "I know," he said. I stepped closer, just enough to hear the quiet hum of magic under his skin, the way the room always changed when he was in it. "I didn't lie to you," I added. "I didn't say you did, but you thought I would." That made him pause. He closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them again. "It wasn't about you, it was about everyone else who came before." Now he turned, slow, deliberate. "Do you know how many deals I've made, Jace? How many people I've offered a way out, only to watch them twisted into something monstrous?" I didn't answer. He didn't expect me to. "They ask for power," he said, "for freedom, for revenge, for love. And then they lie. To me, to themselves, to anyone in the way." His voice wasn't bitter, it was hollow. I stopped expecting truth. It's cleaner that way. I watched him. For a moment he wasn't the perfectly composed figure in silk and marble. He was just a man who'd lived too long surrounded by masks. "Maybe," I said, "you just stopped looking for the ones who don't lie." His gaze sharpened. "Are there any? You tell me." We stood there in the golden silence, not enemies, not partners, something in between, a space without a name but with a pulse. "Why did you stay?" I asked finally. He frowned. "After the contract, after everything. You could have tossed me back to Garrett, erased the paperwork, moved on." "I don't move on," he said, "not easily. Not anymore." "Then why?" He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, softly, "Because you didn't break the way you were supposed to." That hit harder than it should have. I swallowed. "And that bothers you?" "No," he said. "It reminds me..." "Of what?" He looked at me, really looked. "That I'm still capable of feeling something real." We didn't move, we didn't touch. We just breathed the same air for a little while. Eventually he sat down on the edge of the long velvet couch, his posture straight, hands folded in his lap like a statue sculpted in thought. I didn't ask if I could sit next to him, I just did. He didn't react, didn't lean away, didn't lean in, he just was, and so was I. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Neither of us filled the silence. There was no romance in it, no tension to break, just presence. Like the contract had ended but something deeper hadn't. Something that didn't come with signatures. I felt his breath slow beside me. The weight of centuries exhaled. He's not holding me here. He never really was. But I still haven't walked away. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to. The message came folded into a black envelope with no return address, slid under the door while we weren't looking. "Board meeting, Thursday, noon, mandatory." Mirey opened it, read it once and calmly set it on the table without a word. I stared at it like it might burst into flame. "It's happening," I said. He nodded. "Garrett's making his move." Another nod. I paced. "You're just going to let him?" I'm assessing, Mirey replied. Assess faster, I snapped. He's been greasing hands for months, convincing the board I'm unstable, that you're interfering in family assets. He'll frame you as the predator and me as the willing victim. Do you deny any part of that? Mirey asked quietly. I froze. He wasn't accusing, he was checking, testing. And for once I didn't take the bait. I deny being willing. At least at first. He said nothing, which was better than what he could have said. Later that night, I found him in his study, the one room in the penthouse that didn't shift. Dark wood shelves, soft golden light, and more contracts than books. I'm going, I said. Mirey didn't look up. To the meeting? Yes. He set down his pen. Jace, this isn't your fight, I laughed, bitter. Isn't it? He stood. Slowly, carefully. You don't need to bleed for a war I started. And yet I already did, I said. You think Garrett forged my signature once and never planned to do it again? You think Eric isn't waiting to push me out the moment you vanish? His silence was answer enough. I'm not here as your decoration, I continued. Or your hostage. Or your leverage. Not anymore. Mirey's jaw tensed. You still carry my mark. I carry my own name now. I stepped closer. You of all people should understand what that means. He stared at me, cold, still, struggling, and I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to protect me, but he didn't know how to do that without control. I'm going, I said again, and if you want to stop me, you'll have to lock the doors. I don't lock doors, he said quietly. I know. Thursday. Noon. The boardroom was glass, steel, and quiet menace, like a mausoleum from morality. The table gleamed. The water pitchers sparkled. The men and women seated around the room barely glanced at me. Garrett sat near the head, looking relaxed, expensive, and smug. Eric stood near the windows, arms crossed. And then there was me. Just Jace, no title, no rank, no script. I stood, cleared my throat. I'm not going to waste your time, I said. A few heads turned. I know what's been said about me. That I'm unstable, that I'm compromised, that I'm inconvenient. Garrett's mouth twitched. I also know, I continued, that Garrett forged a contract in my name and sold me off to a man he never understood. Now they looked up. I saw the flickers of confusion, denial, curiosity. Eric opened his mouth probably to shut me down. But I held up a hand. I have the original files. I have timestamps, I have proof of unauthorized signatures, but I'm not here to beg for my job back. I'm here to end the game. I turned to Garrett. You used me, again and again, as your safety net, as your scapegoat. But this time, you sold me to someone who doesn't play by your rules. And then, finally, I looked to the back of the room. Mirey stood there, watching, not interfering, just there. I could feel his gaze like a hand on my shoulder. Support, not control. I was collateral, I said. But now I'm the key. I let that hang, let it sting, and then I sat back down. The room stayed silent. For once, Garrett had no clever comeback. And for once, I didn't need Mirey to speak for me. I was enough. I didn't expect applause. But I didn't expect silence to feel like power either. After my speech, the boardroom was still. No coughs, no shuffling chairs. Just that cold, breathless kind of quiet where no one dares move first. Garrett's smile had disappeared. So had the color in his face. I watched him shift in his chair, fingers twitching against the polished mahogany, like he wanted to rewind time with sheer arrogance. Eric looked like he'd swallowed a lemon dipped in gasoline. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The words were already out there, hanging over their heads like smoke that couldn't be unsaid. I'm done being useful only when it's convenient, I'd told them. I'm done being the name Garrett signs when his own isn't good enough. I didn't pull punches. I named every forged document, every hush-hush meeting, every power play he'd made using me as a shield. When I said I had proof, I meant it. I'd uploaded everything to a secure drive. Timestamps, signatures, internal memos. I gave access to the board before I spoke, not after. It wasn't just a speech, it was a detonator. And now, all I had to do was watch what fell. Garrett finally stood. "Jace, let's not." "No," I said. He stopped. It was the first time in my life he obeyed a single word I said. I looked him in the eye, steady. "You don't get to rewrite the ending this time." He stared back, and for the first time I saw it, not rage, not contempt, but fear. Fear of losing control, fear of losing me. The board turned inward, whispers broke like waves, half of them already reaching for their tablets checking the files I'd sent. The other half were watching Garrett like vultures deciding where to land. It was over. He just didn't know how to die with grace. Later that night I stood in Mirey's study. The fire was already lit, low and quiet, casting soft orange against the obsidian edges of the room. Mirey stood at the center, waiting. In his hand the contract. The real one. Not the corporate mess Garrett had faked, but the thin crackling parchment signed in ink that shimmered with something not found in any human pen. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me. And for once, there was no mask, no elegance, no theatrical stillness. Just Mirey. "Are you ready?" he asked. "For what?" "For the end." I walked closer. This contract was binding? Yes, even if I didn't know I'd signed it? He hesitated. The magic didn't care. But I did. That meant more than I wanted it to. I nodded once. "Then do it." Mirey looked down at the page, raised it, and with a single slow tear, split it in two. It didn't fall like paper. It crumbled into black dust and silver sparks, and drifted into the flames without a sound. The fire flared, once, then settled. Mirey let his hand drop. "You're free," he said, voice low. "No more obligations, no claim, no contract, no debt." I looked at the flames, then back at him. He wasn't gloating, he wasn't sad, he was just waiting. So I asked, "And you?" His brow furrowed. "What about me? You said I'm free. But what about you? What binds you now?" His silence said everything. He'd been following rules longer than I'd been alive, serving roles, playing pieces. Now for the first time, he was standing without a script. And that was terrifying, even for him. I stepped closer. "Not too close, just enough. Then I guess we're both free," I said. "So, what now?" His eyes met mine, and something in them softened, almost imperceptibly, like thaw cracking across ancient stone. "I don't know," he admitted. I smiled. "Good. Let's figure it out." The key stuck a little in the lock, like the apartment was surprised to see me again. I couldn't blame it. The place hadn't changed. Same uneven kitchen tiles, same scuffed counter, same overhead light that flickered like it had commitment issues. The fridge groaned when I opened it. A half-empty jar of peanut butter blinked at me from behind expired milk. Home. Not impressive, not glamorous, but mine. I tossed my jacket onto the couch, rolled up my sleeves and turned on the coffee maker. It sputtered to life like it resented being woken up, which again, fair. I stood there in the dim kitchen, staring at the cheap mug in my hand and thought, this is it. This is what freedom tastes like. A little burnt, a little bitter, but mine. I took a sip. And then I heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Not urgent, just present. I didn't even ask how he found me. I opened the door. Mirey stood there, no suit, no tie, just a dark coat over a shirt with the top button undone. He looked like he belonged in the shadows of a noir film. Except he wasn't trying to intimidate me. He looked quiet. I stepped aside. He entered without a word. In silence I poured a second mug of coffee and slid it across the small table. Mirey sat down, folding his hands around the ceramic like the warmth surprised him. We didn't speak for a while. The air between us didn't hum with tension anymore. It just existed, soft, steady, unforced. Eventually I said, "You're not obligated to be here." Mirey looked up, eyes calm. "I'm not here because of obligation." I nodded slowly. Took another sip. That was it. That was the whole exchange. But something in my chest loosened. There were no contracts, no debts, no marks on skin or on paper, just two people, sitting at a kitchen table too small for secrets. For a long time, neither of us said anything. But we didn't need to. Some truths don't need ink to be real. Some bonds don't need blood. And sometimes the scariest thing in the world is knowing you could leave, but choosing to stay. The morning air had that clean, early feel. Crisp without being cold, bright without being blinding. We walked side by side down the street. No destination, no plan. Just the rhythm of footsteps, the occasional chirp of birds, and the comforting hum of a city waking up. People passed us, joggers, coffee carriers. A kid on a scooter who nearly ran into a mailbox. Life, happening all around us. It felt normal, unremarkably perfect. I glanced at Mirey. He was watching the skyline, hands in his coat pockets, face soft in a way I hadn't seen before. Like he was letting himself breathe for the first time in centuries. No edges, no performance, just him. "You know," he said quietly, "I don't make contracts anymore." I raised an eyebrow. "What, cold turkey? No dramatic last deal? No retirement gala?" He almost smiled. "No gala, just a decision." I nodded, keeping my tone light. "That's good. Because I don't sell myself anymore." His head turned, and for a moment he just looked at me, like he was seeing something more than skin and sarcasm. "Good," he said. We kept walking. At the crosswalk we paused. A few people bustled past, too busy to care who or what we were. Mirey's shoulder brushed mine. He didn't move away, neither did I. A breeze tugged at my jacket, he shifted almost instinctively, and our hands bumped, just the backs, just enough. I didn't pull back. He didn't either. We didn't look at each other. We didn't need to. When the light changed, we stepped forward. And somewhere between one sidewalk and the next, I realized he was still here. Not because he had to be. Not because of rules or fear or anything written in infernal ink. And me? I wanted him here. Not for protection. Not for validation. Just for him. Maybe that was the point all along. Not the contracts, not the debts, but the choice. To stay, to try, to begin something new. Not out of obligation, but out of quiet, stubborn hope. He reached out. Not grabbing, not claiming. Just letting his fingers graze mine. A question, an answer, a truth. And I smiled. Because this moment, this street, this quiet human morning, was more powerful than any deal either of us had ever made. He stayed. Not by contract, by choice. And that was the only thing I'd ever truly wanted.